So anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love to put my own flavor into graphic design, whether it's proposals or PowerPoints, flyers, really anything that can be made beautiful. I want to touch it. I want to put my hands on it. But y'all, I have absolutely no business doing graphic design work ever. Like, not even a little bit. And yet I continuously find myself dipping and dabbling in this kind of work that honestly someone else should be doing. And I'm so serious about this because every hour that I spend on this is an hour that I'm not spending doing the kind of work that is required for my actual job, my actual role. I'm not bringing in new business. I'm not monitoring the competition. And I'm certainly not planning strategy when I'm sitting here dipping and dabbling in graphic design and making things look pretty. And deep down, I know this, but I am so stubborn. A couple of months ago, after spending way too many hours beautifying a slide deck, it totally hit me that if I had just focused on the content, just writing that content and just wrote what needed to be written and then handed it off to a graphic designer, I would have had so much more time to knock out all of the other projects that I had on my plate that week. But guess what happened instead? I spent a whole day writing content, and then the rest of the whole week, making slides look pretty. And I lost a whole week of time, just gone. And let me tell you, I was so mad. I was mad at myself. Once I finally figured out, okay, I might be wasting some time here, I decided to run a little experiment. And since I already knew exactly how long it was going to take me to do that job, I decided to see how long it would take a real designer, someone who went to school for this, who does it every day, all the time. So I handed over the content. I let them work their magic. And while they were doing their thing, I made a list of everything else that I could have been doing in the meantime. And guess what? Not only would I have saved time, but also money. And honestly, a whole lot of mental exhaustion because by the time I was done making those slides look perfect, I was tired, I was fried, and I was frustrated and grumpy. And I was starting to get behind on everything else that I should have been working on. And I'm sharing this with you not because I just want to vent right now, but because I know that I'm not the only one who struggles with letting go. And delegating is hard, especially when you're technically skilled and gifted and you love doing that kind of work. You know you can do it. You know you can do it well. But at a certain point, the job that you think you have is not the job that you actually have anymore. And that's what I want to talk about today. You're not here to make PowerPoints if you're in a leadership position. You're not here to run the data analytics. You're not here to be the one printing reports. You're here to lead. And that means stepping outside, and that means stepping out of the weeds and trusting other people to get the job done. Now, I know that that's a lot easier said than done, but I want you to stick with me because in this episode, I'm going to flip the way that we think about delegation and hopefully flip the way we think about it completely to make it easier to do this and to see yourself as the kind of person who can delegate to others. So by the end of this, I want you to not just see delegation as necessary. I want you to see it as an opportunity, one that makes you a stronger leader, that gives your team a chance to shine, and most importantly, y'all, that keeps you from losing a whole week just trying to make slides look pretty. So let's get into it. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Heather Walker, and you're listening to the Lead with Levity podcast, the podcast where we talk about what it really takes to lead, to grow, to succeed, without actually burning out in the process. And if you've ever felt like you're carrying everything on your shoulders, like delegation is a nice idea for other people over there, but somehow it never quite works out for you, this episode is for you. Because today we're diving into one of the biggest mindset shifts that you need to make if you want to step into your full leadership potential. So if you're ready to stop running yourself ragged and start leading smarter, let's get into it. I want to talk about this thing called the delegation dilemma. It's a dilemma that a lot of us face. And it's tricky. It's interesting to me that so many people feel like delegation is hard, just a hard thing to do. They feel icky about it. And what's interesting to me is that on paper, it's super simple, right? You have too much to do. You assign some of that work to someone else, and boom, you free up your time. They get the experience. Everyone wins. So why do so many of us not do it? Or when we do delegate, we end up micromanaging, redoing the work, or feeling guilty about it. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because a lot of us, especially those of us who had to be independent early on, we tie our worth to doing, not leading. Think about it. If you grew up in a house where you had to figure things out on your own, where no one was handing you a playbook, where success meant being capable, then it makes a lot of sense that you struggle to let go. Because for years, your value, your worth was measured by how much you could actually handle. And now you're in a leadership role. You've got people who are there to support you, who are paid to support you in what you're trying to do. And suddenly, people are telling you to stop doing everything yourself, to trust other people with work that you know that you could do better, faster, and right now. And you're wondering, what if they mess it up? What if it doesn't work? What if I have to fix it? What if it makes me look bad? And that's a real fear, isn't it? That if you step back, things are going to fall apart, that you'll be seen as lazy or incompetent, that you'll lose the edge that got you here in the first place. And I get it. I really do get it. But if you don't start letting go, you're never going to have the bandwidth to grow. And at a certain level, the job that you think you have is not the job that you actually have anymore. You're no longer the one making the PowerPoints, running the reports, designing the graphics. You're the one leading the people who do. And that requires a completely different mindset. So today, I want to help you flip the script on delegation. I want to help you see it for what it really is, not just a way to lighten your load, but an opportunity to step into who you truly are, your true role as a leader. And to do that, we have to start with this one question. What if delegation wasn't about giving up control, but actually about gaining something bigger? Let's break this down. Delegation is an opportunity. We've talked about why it feels hard, why so many of us resist it, why we hold on to things that we really should be handing off, and why letting go can feel like we're giving up control. But what if? What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if delegation isn't actually about offloading work, but about creating opportunities? I want us to shift from this idea of it being a burden to an opportunity. A lot of us see it as a necessary evil, like, ugh, fine, I guess I'll have to let someone else do this. But think about it like this. Every time you delegate, you're not just making your life easier, you're actually giving someone else a chance to step up, to grow, to gain skills and confidence. It's like coaching a team. Imagine with me, y'all. Imagine if a coach said, you know what? I'll just play this whole game myself. I know how to score points, So why am I going to risk letting these players take a shot? That would be insane, right? That it would be entertaining at first, and then we'd start to feel sad and sorry for that coach who thinks that they really can play that game all by themselves and that they should. And yet, that's exactly what we do when we refuse to delegate. We keep our team on the bench, we hold them back, we deny them the chance to step into their full potential because we're afraid that it's not going to be perfect. But if you're the only one who can do the job, you're already failing as a leader. And that was hard. So I promise you, I'll soften this up a little bit as we go further. I promise I'll soften it up. If you're feeling like, what? Why are you talking to me like this? Don't worry. It'll come back around. I'll give you a virtual e-hug in just a moment. Because leadership isn't about being the best doer. I'm so serious about this. It's about building a team that can win without you having to take every shot. So I'm going to give you an analogy that hopefully you can connect with. And it's a baking analogy where we start to think about how everyone can have a role to play in what we're doing here. We all understand food. So imagine that you're making this really big dinner, lots of courses, lots of moving parts. You've got the main dish, you've got the sides, the salad, maybe even some dessert. Yes, to dessert. Now, you could do it all yourself. You could run around the kitchen, chopping, seasoning, stirring, checking the oven, setting the table, hoping nothing burns. I know I've done that myself before. Or you could have a team. You could say, all right, you handle the salad, you prep the veggies. I'm going to focus on the main dish. Everyone gets a role, everyone contributes. And guess what? Dinner gets done faster with less stress. And everyone comes out, all of the food comes out hot and at the same time. But maybe you have someone on your team who doesn't chop the onions exactly the way you like, right? Someone's got their hand up in the back, like, but wait, I like my onions chopped a certain way. And I know if I give them that job, they are not going to chop the onions the way I chop the onions. Maybe the seasoning isn't perfect, but is the meal still good? And did you drive yourself into the ground trying to do it all? No. That's how delegation works. And just like in cooking, you wouldn't give the beginner the most high stakes task right away. You wouldn't say, hey, first time in the kitchen? Great, you're in charge of the souffle. No, you wouldn't do that. You'd start them off with something really simple: peeling carrots, stirring sauce, chopping herbs, taste testing, right? You'd start them off with something basic that they can handle. And the same goes for work. If you have a junior team member, don't throw them into the deep end with something critical on day one and then act surprised if they don't get it right. No, give them something that they can handle, build their confidence, let them earn bigger responsibilities. And who's peeling the green beans? I started cooking pretty young. My mom was the kind of person who believed that if you were old enough to reach the counter, you were old enough to help in the kitchen. And one of the first jobs that she gave my brother and I was snapping the ends off of the green beans. It was so simple. No knives, no fire, no high stakes timing, just a task that we could handle. Something that made us feel like we were a part of the process, like we were contributing. And at the same time, I didn't think much of it. But looking back, that was delegation in action. She knew that she could do it faster herself. She knew that the meal would still get done if she just handled everything on her own. But she gave us a role. She let us be a part of that meal making process in a way that fit our experience level. And that's exactly how delegation should work at work too. So the question that I want you to think about if you have people on your team is what is the green bean task in your world? What's the equivalent of snapping the ends off of green beans? Something that's important, but not mission critical. Something that lets your junior team member get their hands in the work without actually putting the whole meal at risk. And that's where you start. Instead of saying, no one can do this but me, you want to ask yourself, what's one small thing that I can let go of? Who on my team needs this opportunity? And if I never delegate this, who loses the chance to grow? Because we don't just hold ourselves back when we refuse to delegate. We hold other people back too. And that's something that I don't hear about very much. I hear about, oh, yeah, you're getting tired because you're doing all the work yourself and all of that. But we don't always talk about the impact that has on our team as well and our legacy as leaders. So if you're serious about being a leader, not just a doer, you have to start thinking about delegation as an investment. It's an investment in your team's growth, in your growth, and in your company's future. So the next time that you catch yourself saying, it's just easier, just so much easier if I do this thing, I want you to stop. Stop it. I want you to picture yourself in that kitchen, frantically juggling every single dish, sweating over the stove while your team sits there on the sidelines watching or watching TV. And ask yourself, am I really leading right now? Or am I just running myself ragged? Because great leaders don't do everything. They make everything happen. So let's talk about the power of asking questions. Now that we've flipped the script on delegation, seeing it as an opportunity rather than a burden, I want to talk about how do we actually make this work? Because delegation isn't just handing things off, it's about how you set people up for success too, right? And that starts with asking the right questions. And questions matter. The kinds of questions that you ask matter. Because most people think delegation is just here, do this. Can you take care of that? I need this by Friday. Task dumping. And task dumping leads to confusion, frustration, whole lot of redoing work because expectations weren't clear in the first place. Maybe you had something in your head, but that doesn't mean that they know what was in your head. So it starts before you even assign the task. It starts with you getting very clear about what is actually needed, who is the best fit for this, and how am I going to create a learning moment instead of just moving work off of my plate. This is gold here. So I'm about to give you some very concrete questions, and I encourage you, if you're in a place where you can, take some notes. Here's some questions that you should ask yourself. Who on my team needs this opportunity? Who on my team needs this opportunity? It sounds like a simple question, but we get this wrong sometimes. We get this wrong because we're thinking, all right, who can get this job done the fastest? That's not always who needs this opportunity. Instead, I want you to think, who would benefit the most from doing this? It's a different kind of question, right? Who would benefit the most? Maybe it's someone who's looking to grow. Maybe it's someone who's been in the shadows on your team and they really need a chance to shine. They need this win. Maybe it's someone who you need to start trusting a little bit more. So, who needs this opportunity? That's question one. Question two is what level of support do they actually need? Okay? Because not every task should just be thrown at someone with this figure it out kind of attitude. When I was coming up and starting my career, the phrase used to be sink or swim. And not everything should be sink or swim, y'all. Just because you had to sink or swim doesn't mean that it's appropriate and right to do that to somebody else, okay? If you know better, you do better. So some people need step-by-step guidance. And if they need that, provide that. There are so many ways for you to take the knowledge that you've gained and create standard operating procedures from it. You can do something as simple as opening up the snipping tool on your computer right now. It doesn't just take screenshots anymore, it also does video. It captures video of your screen, you talking, all the whole 9 yards. And you can literally record yourself doing a task, talk through it out loud, share your thought process, put that in a folder and hand that off to someone so that they can learn from you and the next person can learn from you. Do it once so that you can benefit lots of people in the process. Step-by-step guidance. Some people need that. Others just need a deadline and a check-in, right? So you want to ask, okay, do they need training first? Do they need examples? How much freedom should I give them? If they are a very creative person, maybe they just need some general constraints, like timeline. It's everything is good as long as you don't go with hot pink, for example. They may just need some general guidelines. If they're the type of person who likes to follow rules and order and structure, they may need step-by-step guidance. So really learn about your person so that you can figure out, how do I support them and give them the right information so that I can set them up for success. And speaking of success, question number 3 is, what does success look like? I can't tell you how many times this comes up where a leader they're frustrated. They're frustrated because they're not getting what they want, but they never took the time to sit down and say, this is what done looks like. And this is what good looks like. This is what better looks like. And this is what best looks like. So if you don't define what good looks like, don't be surprised when someone turns up with something that you don't want. Ask yourself, what are the non-negotiables here? Do I have wiggle room? Do they have flexibility when it comes to formatting, phrases, how they set up the structure and the process, who they bring in for as vendors? Where is the flexibility here? And what are the non-negotiables? And what does an A+ version of this look like? And then the key is you got to communicate that to the person that you're delegating to and make sure that you're on the same page about that. And give ownership, not just instructions. So those are the 3 questions, right? Who on my team actually needs this opportunity? What level of support do they need? And then what does success look like? Ask, and then we communicate that to them and we give ownership. And this is where a lot of leaders go wrong, honestly. They don't just delegate the task itself, they also delegate exactly what to do. What do I mean by that? Instead of saying, here's the outcome that I want, how do you think we should get there? They might say, just do it exactly like this. Just do this. They shut off that other person's thinking, right? And turn them into a, okay, I'll do whatever you say and whatever you tell me to do kind of a person. So I want you to think about that. If there is wiggle room, what does that look like? So that you can treat them like an adult with respect and give them an opportunity to figure that out. And remember that mistakes are part of the process. And that's not a reason to avoid delegating. That's actually a reason to get better at delegating. Because when you're learning, you're not perfect. You're not perfect from day one. When you had to learn how to ride a bike, when you had to learn how to type, when you had to learn how to drive a car, when you had to learn anything, the first few rounds, the first few goes at that thing probably weren't that great, right? It probably took you a long time, longer than you probably even want to admit, before you started to feel comfortable and confident at what you were doing, right? Mistakes aren't just possible, they are inevitable. And if you go into delegation expecting perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? So instead of fearing mistakes, I want you to start planning for mistakes. Yes, plan for mistakes. So here's how you can delegate with mistakes in mind. First, expect a learning curve, right? No one masters something the first time. And instead of getting frustrated with that person, you might need to take some deep breaths. You might need to go for a walk. You might need to just plan in advance. What are you going to do if a mistake happens? How are you going to make sure that you don't flip out on that person the first time they tell you that a mistake happened? Make sure you're building in time for feedback too. Don't give them something that has a deadline of tomorrow, because what if more is required than you even realized? You're going to be stuck. You're going to be frustrated. They're going to feel like they're failing. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to them. So make sure that you plan for that learning curve and expect it. Create a safety net. That's the second thing. If a mistake could cause real damage, put some guardrails in place, a review process, a second set of eyes, whatever it takes to catch those errors before they become really big problems, disasters even. So create a safety net. The third thing is normalize feedback. Too many leaders wait until there is a problem, until there's a mistake to give feedback. And when they do that, you create this culture where feedback comes with I've got to brace myself, I've got to steel myself because it's going to be negative, it's going to be bad. I did something wrong. Instead, you want to make feedback constant so that when corrections are needed, it doesn't feel like a crisis. It just feels, okay, we're going to talk about it. We're going to learn from this. No matter what, it's going to be all right. So you want to normalize feedback. And then the last thing is ask, what did you learn? We want to learn. You don't just want to correct it, you want to talk about it. What went wrong? What could have been done differently next time? And this turns a mistake into a growth opportunity, a learning moment. We talk about growth mindset. This is how you encourage a growth mindset. Remember, at the end of the day, delegation isn't about making your life easier. It's about making your team stronger. It's about making your team stronger. And if you're too afraid to make a mistake, if you're too afraid of your team making a mistake, then you're not just holding on to tasks, you're actually holding on to control in a way that stunts the growth of the people around you. But when you learn to delegate with intention, that's when you're truly going to see just amazing things happen as a leader. You're going to see it. I'm so excited for you. I really am. I want to close today with a pact because we covered a lot, and I hope you're seeing delegation in a whole new way. We talked about why it feels hard, why it's actually an opportunity, how to ask the right questions, and what to do if it feels downright impossible. And now it's time for us to take action. So let's make a pact. I want you to repeat this after me. And if you're not alone and you feel embarrassed, you can just repeat it in your head. That is okay. But if you are able to, say it out loud with me, okay? I do not have to do it all. I do not have to do it all. Delegation is not a loss of control. It's an investment in growth. I am willing to trust my team and let them step up. I am willing to trust my team and let them step up. Mistakes are a part of the learning process, and I'm going to plan for them. I am ready to lead, not just execute. All right, y'all. That's it. That's the shift. Delegation isn't about letting go of power. It's about stepping into your power. It's about making the people around you better so that you can focus on only what you can do best. And if you do that, if you commit to starting somewhere, even if it's just handing off the green beans, you're going to be shocked by how much lighter everything else feels. So my challenge to you today is to find one thing, just one thing that you can delegate this week. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours to let go of. And when you do that, I want you to watch what happens. Because trust me, when you stop holding on so tight, that's when everything starts falling into place. So that's it for today. If this episode hit home for you, I want you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to level up in your leadership without running yourself into the ground, let's connect. You can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Lead with Levity.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.